Torah. Good morning. Say hi to your adoring fans, Torah. Yes, she's my good kitty. I'm getting an early start today because I realized that it's time to start doing video reviews of all these books that authors have sent me. So I'm starting with Stargazer by Miguel Conner. Yeah, my lighting is kind of messed up. Lots of kind of bright spots. I keep forgetting words. Well, I first reviewed this book on my blog in August of 2011. And this blog post has over 300,000 views. Let's give you a link to my review. Sadly, my blog is not monetized. My YouTube channel is not monetized. Apparently, nope, that doesn't work. Google just years ago kept the $20 I had spent a year earning and kicked me off of their monetization, which is probably okay. I mean, there are other and better ways to earn money, like getting you to read my books, but today I want you to look at Miguel Conner's book, Stargazer. He signed it to me. There's a sequel to Stargazer called Heretic, but I can't find that one. I had these two books together on my bookshelf, but someone thought it would be helpful to rearrange everything I own, including all my books. So it's a miracle that I found this one. The hero, and I keep Byron. I always want to call him Dante, but he's Byron, like Lord Byron, is one of the stargazers. They are vampires, and they keep the warm ones, here it is, the humans, like cattle. Very much like the lower classes in that movie, The Matrix. The vampires, of course, suck their life's energy, but Byron gets to know one of the warm ones. They consider them animals, but they have language and culture and a society of their own. It's a post-apocalyptic world. They harvest the humans for their blood, and they use them for sport. Now, I read this in 2011, and what I remember most is that it's a real page-turner. Yeah, just like my books, there you'll find typos, but it isn't a big deal. Now, being vampires, the stargazers cannot come out in the daylight. And in their post-apocalyptic world, they can't see the stars. There's all this crud in the sky. And you know, this guy Byron apparently has a better moral compass than most of the vampires. He meets one of the warm ones. Well, they're supposed to be food, but just like Alice in Wonderland, it's hard to eat your food when you've been introduced, when you know its name. Remember that scene where the pudding is set on the table and one of the characters says, Alice, pudding, pudding, Alice. They've been introduced, and Alice sticks her fork into the pudding, but she is not allowed to eat it. Well, he has to figure out how he's going to survive as a vampire when he has a problem with eating his food, drinking blood. His own Society of Vampires brands him a heretic, hence the sequel, Heretic. This book and many others are by Miguel Conner are available. I have to find his blog. Here we go. No, don't you just love Here we go, the Stargazer blog. He has a new novel coming out. Well, I guess it's out now, called The Executioner's Daughter. But you can find lots of Miguel Conner's books on his blog. I think it's his. Yeah. And all kinds of information about his book. There. And I'm going to close my blog just to keep my connection strong. Now, I ordinarily don't start for another 2.5 hours, so this is just a short one. But let's read the back. In a new era of eternal night, the undead rule supreme. You see, the sun doesn't come out. You can tell it's early in the morning here. I'm fumbling with things that ordinarily don't confuse me. There, here we go. 500 years ago, the Stargazers magnifying glass. It's not only small, it's lit by their immortal, it should be lead. It says let. Led by their immortal Moon Queen, sparked global nuclear war, blotted out the sun, conquered the world, and rewrote history. Now humans are cattle whose blood feeds the master race, the glorious rulers of high-tech cities. And no one calls stargazers by their true name, vampires. Yet some impulse is stirring in the slave farms, an echo of a forgotten pride. Byron, a rebellious young stargazer, is assigned to investigate the something on there. Warm ones. In other words, destroy any threat. But when a beautiful human shaman shows him unbelievable truths about his past, his origin, and his destiny, a vampire will discover that his immortal enemy is his living goddess, the Moon Queen. Somehow, the cover of this book got something stuck to it. Got to fix that before it gets worse. Anyway, this really is a page turner. And it reminds me of The Matrix, that movie that basically ripped off Philip K. Dick and just said, oh, we were inspired by Philip K. Dick. So they didn't have to pay anything for the ideas that they stole. Now, if they'd stolen from Harlan Ellison would have kept them in court for a decade and stopped any viewing of the film until they paid up. But, well, even if Phil had been alive when The Matrix came out, he was not willing to fight the way Harlan Ellison was. Anyway, this Stargazer is a highly original work, drawing ideas from Conner's own philosophy and research. And yeah, Conner is a Gnostic, a modern Gnostic. I don't think he's really steeped in the ancient philosophy of Epicurus, and who basically made Gnosticism popular. And by the way, the ancients did not call themselves Gnostics. That was an insult hurled at them by outsiders. Philip K. Dick, also did not really understand. But he did have some familiarity with the Nag Hammadi texts, which are considered Gnostic. Let's see. Well, Phil, that's interesting about Ellison. Someone stole a rare edition of an Oz book from him. Hi, Beacon. Hi, Tim. Let's see. Hi, Tim. Hi, Beacon. This is not my main Tuesday morning broadcast. It's just I was awake. I found one of my books, Howard, and I decided to talk about it. I've been searching for the books that I promised to review, and apparently my blog is more popular than I thought. 300,000 views on my review of this book, Stargazer. I don't think I ever reviewed the sequel, Heretic, but I can't find it. If you want to help someone, don't move every book they own and mix them all up after. I spent weeks and even months organizing my books so that the ones that belonged together were together, and someone thought that was wrong and mixed them all up. And even put back books that I had taken off the shelf to sell, donate, or even, in some cases, toss in the trash. I hate to do that to a book, but sometimes it's necessary. Anyway, if you like vampires, you'll love Stargazer. And it isn't a Gnostic polemic by any means. But you can find shades of Gnosticism in it. And I think it's particularly applicable to our situation today. Yeah, the self-proclaimed elites don't exactly suck our blood. Not literally, but definitely metaphorically. And who knows, maybe some of them do drink blood. It isn't unheard of in the annals of history. It's just that no matter how hard you work, if you aren't one of them, there's that glass ceiling, and it doesn't really mean that you're female or you have dark skin or English is your second language. What it means is that you were not born into their society. You actually work for a living. You don't blow paint through a straw and get $500,000 for your painting. You don't sit on the board of some company where you have no knowledge of their products and services and get paid $1 million a year. The average American worker is lucky to make $1 or $2 million in a lifetime. Some make a lot less. They use the people who produce the goods and services that keep them in their lifestyle. And we don't even know who most of them are. Yes, Howard, you can work your tail off. I was working 2 jobs in the 1990s, and for 2 years, I lived in my car. At least I had a car, but I could not come up with the deposits to rent an apartment. I finally found a room for rent with a lady named Annette. I stayed there for over a year, and we became friends. It was hard to find a room to rent because I had 2 cats. My original cats, Tuffy and Cubby. They were the best. But now that I have Tora, she's the best. Anyway, for example, the Kennedys. All kinds of cousins and nieces and nephews get outrageous incomes just for being Kennedys. I wonder if the Georgia Guidestones, which Deacon mentioned, are they the plan posted by one of the elite, or are they a warning posted by someone who is against the elite? You know what's really horrifying is that a salary of $1 million a year is pocket change to the people who are paying it. They have billions and trillions. So you can take this as a fable, uh, or maybe a morality play, although it doesn't come to the bad ending for the villain the way morality plays do. But it's a great novel length metaphor for what we're experiencing today. The vampires don't realize that they are cursed, and the people they rule over are not cursed. The vampires think they're the good guys, and all those humans, well, they're just cattle. Yeah, well, you see, we have what, about 7 billion people in the world? When I was a child in school, they were warning us that soon there would be 3 billion people in the world, and the earth could not sustain that many people. And then they were warning us there might be as many as 5 billion people in the world. We were headed toward disaster, using up all our resources and being overcrowded and so forth. Well, now we have something like 7 billion, and all of them, all of us, could fit in Texas or Alaska comfortably, with nice sprawling suburban homes and big yards and gardens. But they keep shoving us into these big cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Detroit. Well, of course, you have a lot of crime in this city. It's so unnatural for people. Now, not all cities are like that, but we are living in Babylon when we go to a big city. You're living in concrete, asphalt, glass, and steel. That's unnatural. If you're in a small city, you have maybe a patch of grass out in front of your house, or like the apartments that Phil and I lived in. There were two. Um, they had a courtyard with gardens, and we could put, if we wanted, we could put a planter box on the windowsill. Or in the other apartment, we had a patio. We called it a catio for the cat. Just a little, kind of a balcony. Uh, it was nice. But then Phil saw this house for rent, and we moved into a house with front and back yards with gardens, and Oh, wow. I had seen that little house on Santa Isabel. It was near our babysitter's home. But I didn't say anything because I didn't think Phil wanted to take on such a big responsibility. But one day he saw it and he immediately called the number on the for rent sign. We had a 2-year old boy and some cats, and well, yeah, we kind of needed a house. Soylent Green reminds you of Fukushima. Hmm, I don't know. It's interesting, the hysteria about atomic bombs and nuclear power plants. Yeah, they're dangerous. But when my baby sister was born and mom was in the hospital, they had two mothers to each room. And mom's roommate was a lady who was at, had been at Fukushima. Not, sorry, um, not Fukushima. Uh, Criminy. I'm blank again. Hiroshima or Hiroshima when the bomb was dropped. She was a teenager at the time, and the Japanese lady jumped into a pond completely underwater and survived. But of course, she was worried that the radiation might harm her child, even though it had been um, some, well, about 15 years or so since the bomb. Well, her baby came out fine, perfectly normal and all right. And all she did was jump into a pond and stay underwater until the heat from the blast was dissipated so she wouldn't burn up. Wow. And that oh gosh. It isn't just early in the morning. I'm just losing words. No, no, no. No, no. Chernobyl. In Chernobyl, of course, people are gone from Chernobyl where the nuclear power plant blew up. But the plants and animals are coming back, and they appear to be healthy. Yeah, it's sad. Hiroshima and Nagasaki got bombed. And there's that movie, Dr. Strangelove, that is a great warning about nuclear war and um, how one misstep can escalate into a worldwide disaster in the form of war. But really, you don't need atomic bombs to wreak havoc. Look at Afghanistan. It's the modern day Vietnam. You can thank George Bush, the son. W. Took me a long time to figure out why they called him W, because when you see it written, it looks like dubia. It's W. Anyway, our troops were there for year upon year, but not allowed to win the war. It was just a holding pattern, like a jet aircraft circling and waiting for clearance to land, and sometimes more like the aircraft on the ground taxiing to the runway and then stopping and sitting and waiting for clearance to take off. And yes, the Taliban is horrible, but you know what? They put a stop to the heroin exports from Afghanistan. I'm not saying we should allow them to take over, but how come the heroin trade exploded when American troops kicked out the Taliban? There's blood on everybody's hands, and we must not blame our troops. They don't get to decide. They are not in charge. They follow orders. Now, if an order is unlawful, that's a different story, but how is some troop on the ground in a group of troops, how is that one guy supposed to know what's unlawful? He isn't in the loop. I don't know what Taliban is. I suspect the British, the elites of London, not the Queen, but, well, maybe. More likely the bankers. And I'm tired of everybody blaming the Jews. There is no the Jews. What have I done with it? For example, the Rothschilds are not ethnic Jews, and they only call themselves Jewish when it serves their purposes. They were not oppressed by Hitler's SS and so forth. Only one Rothschild cousin was arrested. I believe it was in Austria, not because he was Jewish, no, but because he was hiding Jews, trying to keep them safe from the Nazis. The Rothschilds are not Jewish unless it serves their purposes. And when Americans think of Jews, what we picture in our minds is actually Eastern Europeans. Romanians and Bulgarians and so forth. Anyway, I've gone much longer than I intended to, but I guess that's okay. But I will be coming back in about an hour. I've got to get something to eat and make a cup of coffee, and I finished my first cup of coffee. Still have a little tea left and some water. Ooh, water's almost gone. But when I come back in about an hour, I'm going to look at Peter Levenda's book, Unholy Alliance. I've read some of it. I'm on page 82. It's really dense, not necessarily difficult to read, but rather horrifying. So, you guys, okay, I'll be back in about an hour. Thank you all for listening. Oh, and nobody gave me Unholy Alliance. I had to buy it. I just had to after Joseph Farrell talked about it. And then I heard a radio interview over the internet, but it was radio, of Peter Levenda talking about his experiences in South America. See you later. Okay, and thank you for the thumbs up. And thank you for listening. Bye, and see you soon.